Hi friends, Mindy here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a quick flip through to share with you. This is for the Exploring Joy study that we completed in July for Faith Journal July. This was hosted by Debbie at Pouring My Art Out for the Lord and Diane at Faith Art Studios, and I was one of the contributors for the month of July. My day actually was the July 24th, and I have a video for that which I will try to remember to link down in the description, as well as the setup video for this particular journal if you're interested in that. All my links will be down in the description, including my website, which is called chosenandcrafting.com, my Facebook group, same name. I'd love to have you join me over there, my Instagram, all those things down in the description. But I just thought I would jump in really quickly and just share how my journal ended up. I do have the setup here in the front with just some of the kind of the tags and the calendar and everything. These were part of the printables, and every day was really kind of following the same pattern, and so it's pretty simple. I used some large numbers all the way throughout to indicate each day that we were working on. I included the scripture. I had printed mine out in King James Version, but there was a ESV version available as well. And then my response to the questions, some of the Bible study questions are on the actual Bible study pages that I have, but my response for the kind of self-reflection questions that were in as part of the study are in here, like tucked in pockets and whatever. I'm not going to share those because those are, you know, kind of private. I just want to keep those to myself. But no, just know that on the back of like the journaling cards, that's what's on the back of there. So I just created some pockets, and you'll see there's kind of an eclectic mix of things in here. So some things are Tim Holtz, some things are printables from the kit. It just kind of depended. I have a lot of tags and tuck spots basically on every day. That's kind of how I handled that. And so I did include the day, the verse for the day. This one I actually included another verse that went along with it. And here I have this pocket here as well as this pocket here that was made from forming the two pages that I just glued together from the journal. This is some Tim Holtz here. Again, Tim Holtz there. This was just something that was in my stash, and I wrote the question here, and then I have my answer on the back. And then again, this is the scripture for that day and one of the printables. So I tried to keep that kind of consistent where I have, you know, these large numbers to indicate the day. I have a pocket, a journaling card typically, and the verse, sometimes more than one verse. And here I just created, I had a little ephemera piece that said, "Be joyful." This was from my stash, and I just created like a little tab with that. I really like how that turned out. And so again, I have a lot of different things. This is actually part of Your Creative Studio, and I just trimmed it down to create a pocket. And then I have this, I have a Tim Holtz butterfly. I've got some reflection on the back. I have scripture here. I have actually included the quote from Matthew Henry. This was on the bottom of the Bible journaling study, or the Bible study, but I really loved this quote, and so I wanted to include that on there as well as another verse as well. And then this one, I didn't really want to cover up a lot of this page because this is a very old German book paper, and so I wanted to kind of keep it just because I really think that the font of it is beautiful. So I just added my day stamp and then the little verse for today, and then I have another quote here, another pocket. And when I created the journal, this ledger was large, and so when I folded it over, it just created a little pocket there. So some of these are printables, some of it is Tim Holtz, some of it, you know, it's just things that I've had in my stash, and that's kind of the way that I worked through this whole entire month. I wanted to make sure that I had a lot of interest, and I was just kind of using things that were in my stash and around. These were just kind of some stickers that I had. You can see this is some beautiful vintage ledger. And then this is actually, I think this is from Your Creative Studio as well. And I just created, it's meant to be like a background. I just created a pocket for this really large tag there. And then this is a French paper from a French book of sermons from the like 1700s. And so I wanted to keep this. So I stamped in the open area on the page, and then I just kept this as a tip in because, again, I just wanted to be able to enjoy this paper. And then I created a little pocket. I have my journaling response here and just a little note on there. And then the same with this hymnal, I wanted to kind of leave that as well. So that moves into day 14. Again, this is just a big piece from your creative studio. It's just been in my stash forever. I created a tag from the printable, which I have the question here and my answer on the back. And then this is just some beautiful vintage dictionary paper. Again, your creative studio. Same with this. It was actually one of those bigger sheets I just cut down into a tag shape so that I could write the question and my response on the back. And these were, I believe these were your creative studio as well, but if not, it was just something that had been in my stash for a while. And then these 2 pages were actually loose from the way that I designed the journal. And so I glued them together so that on day 16, I would actually have a pocket up here. So this is from the printable. I just created a little tab out of a ticket that I had in my stash. This is the printable in the background here. Another just page for some interest. The scripture on here, and then this was actually a piece of a leftover Tim Holtz journaling card, and I really liked how that looked there, so I created a tag out of that, or a tab, excuse me. And then this was part of the printable for day 17. I included that there along with this postcard. I included a Spurgeon quote there, and this was something from my stash, and then I added just a little bit of one of the printables on here. I thought that all of the reds went really well together, and again, my reflection is on the back, and then that's our verse for today. Day 18, same thing, beautiful old dictionary paper, your creative studio, big page that I just turned into a pocket, and then I used the printable to include my reflection on there. And this was actually one of the beautiful background papers that was available along with the printables. And so again, it's just a mix of Tim Holtz. This was one of the little flashcard words. I have the verse on here, and I printed all my verses on clear sticker paper, and then sometimes I just backed them, and sometimes I stuck them straight to the background paper, just depending on the day, kind of how I wanted to do that. And I created a little pocket here with this ledger, as well as I created a journaling card, again from the printables. So there's a lot that you can do with those beautiful background printables. Day 22, I had this vintage ledger as part of my journal, and I really wanted to keep all of this writing, so I just added a little Tim Holtz piece up here, made a little cluster down here at the bottom, and then for this page, another old ledger. So I have a quote from Matthew Henry here, another Tim Holtz thing, and then my reflection is on the back of this printable here, and it just kind of tucks down in this pocket and just a little bit behind this piece right here so that it doesn't keep falling out. Day 23, again, this was a collage piece from, I believe, your creative studio. I was getting that subscription a long time ago. I haven't gotten it in a while, but I still have a lot of pieces left over that I'm trying to use up. And then again, just kind of created a little cluster here. This was actually from Hobby Lobby. And then I used the printables for my journaling card for my response. And then this is another situation where I had those 2 pages that were, smaller, and I glued them together in such a way that I could create a pocket. This I actually have a process video for, because this is my day of study. And then I used one of Tim Holtz pieces here to create a tag that's just tucked in there. And then a few little, clusters here. And then this is the verse. This page back here is from the printable set that you could get. And then for day 25, I just stamped this right here on this beautiful vintage paper, and then I created a pocket with some vellum, and I have the scripture for this day here, again, your creative studio, and my reflection is on the back. But the reason that I did a vellum pocket here was because I really loved this vintage paper, and the fact that it had somebody's notes from their study, and they were actually studying in Job, which I thought was just really interesting. So sometimes things are just kind of surprising when you're putting together a journal, I guess. And so I wanted to keep all of those little things. I really like those notes and stuff from people's studies, so that's why I decided for a a vellum pocket there so I could still enjoy all of that. And then kind of the same thing here. They have their notes up there, and I have my verse on one of the printable doilies. Here I created a little side tuck with a vintage Tim Holtz piece, and then this is actually from the printable, and this I believe was a Tim Holtz piece as well. I just trimmed it out a little bit, mostly because I still wanted to be able to kind of see some of that too, where they obviously can't read everything, but just, you know, their underlining and everything I just think is fun. So day 29, these, again, this is 2 different pages. I ended up just kind of folding this one in and created a little pocket here out of this, since it was smaller than this back page. And then I have a printable here with my reflection question on the back. And then I added this little key that has the printable, again, kind of to try to bring the color around. So this is for day 29. Here is that verse on clear sticker paper. This is some coffee dyed paper that I added. And then created a little cluster for day 30 with the verse, some of the printables, some Tim Holtz, just kind of a lot of different things. And then I found this in my stash that I had been wanting to use, and I used it on this day specifically because this is one of those days where I felt like I really wanted to remember this particular question and keep it kind of in the forefront of my mind. The question is like, talking about, are we willing to suffer rejection and being uncomfortable and those kinds of things for the sake of other people? And I feel like that's such an important aspect of our relationship with people and with the Lord. And so I wanted to remember this. And then my reflection, like I said, is on the back. And I also included a little postcard from the printable collection as well. And I just made a little vellum pocket again down here. I like repeating elements throughout my junk journal. So I had a vellum pocket before. I wanted to have another one. Same with kind of using these large numbers all the way throughout, creating pockets all the way throughout. The same types of things. It just kind of helps the journal itself feel more cohesive, even though I'm using a variety of different things. So I'm using printables, I'm using Tim Holtz, I'm using Your Creative Studio, I'm using whatever, you know, it's just kind of bouncing around on my desk at the time. And it does sort of help to pull everything together. I think this is actually an old basic gray tag. I can't remember, but it's very old. It's been in my stash forever. Anyway, this is day 31, and again, just a mix of all of the things. I just created a little cluster with some of those Your Creative Studio kind of background papers. This is Tim Holtz. This is Your Creative Studio. Again, I just created a pocket out of this ledger. Here is the verse, and I added this to this same paper here to kind of bring that all together, and I'm using kind of these colors to inspire all of this layout, if that makes sense. And then I have that Tim Holtz piece right there. And then what this ends up doing is leaving me a couple of signatures in my journal that I have not yet touched. I did add one of the clear stickers here as well. And so I wasn't sure how much space this journal was actually going to take when I created it, or how many spaces I would need for notes depending on how I was going to work through it. So I have 2 signatures back here that I have not used. And so I have a couple options. I can remove them because of the way that I created this journal, and it's pretty chunky. So if I remove them, it might help it stay closed just a little bit better. You can kind of see it wants to alligator open a little bit. I can even retie this and it wouldn't be a problem. Or I can continue on, which is another idea that I've had with a study. Since this was kind of the study in the New Testament about joy, I think I might go back through and do some study in the Old Testament, and then I can just include those notes back here in these last 2 signatures. I haven't quite decided how I am going to do that. If I end up doing that, I'll do another flip through at some point, but I just wanted to share with you, this was a really good study, and I mentioned this in my video. It's not too late to join it. The name of the Facebook group has changed. It's no longer Exploring Joy, but the information is still in that Facebook group. So anyway, if you liked this video, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and until next time, bye.